here. What do you give on it? 25, 50, 75, $100,000. You are listening to the Auction is Action with You in It podcast presented by Call to Auction, where our favorite four-letter word is S-O-L-D. Sold.
Well, hello there, everyone. Bobby D here with the Auction is Action with You in It podcast. And today we're going to be having a quick conversation about one of my favorite things in the entire world, auction paddles. That's right. We're going to be talking about why it's so important to have a paddle in every donor's hand at your fundraising event and why paddles are still working even in this day and age of technology. So let's talk a little bit about that. So first things first. So you have a gala that's coming up and you've got an opportunity to register each and every one of your guests and give them a paddle. So this is reason number one why it's important to have a paddle, is that you are able to identify your donors and get their information, their name, their email address, their home address, their phone number. And when they make that donation, now that's where the relationship starts right there. They raise their paddle, they buy an auction item, boom, you got their information. We know who it was. There's no guessing of like, oh, it was that person in the red jacket, or it was that young lady over there in the blue dress. None of that. We know who they are. Paddle number 301. Thank you so much. So that's reason number one why you need a paddle. Reason number two is that with all of the wonderful technologies that are out there, very, very necessary, especially if you're hosting the silent auction and that you are doing your registration online, your registration online is so vital, again, to capture that contact information for your guests and for your donors. And using tech is the best way to do that. Now, in your silent auction, you have the tech and they are going to be all bidding on their cell phones. Now, you're going to say, well, Bobby, why don't we just do the paddle raise on our cell phones? Well, it's not a paddle raise, and it's just an ask. And yes, there are some circumstances where this works. However, the types of events that we host and the types of events that we work on best with our clients is ones where we're actually using paddles. Now, your technology could be working really well in an audience that's 1,000 people or more, or maybe it's a music festival. But what's going to happen here is that if you're using this in your paddle raise and you're under 1,000 people at your fundraising event, what's going to end up happening is you're going to tell your beautiful story, you're going to tug at those heartstrings, you're going to create the golden goosebump moment, but then you're going to say, all right, friends, grab your phones, open up your phones, go into the technology and make a gift at whichever level is meaningful for you. So what happens when you turn on your screen? Oh, look, there's notifications. Oh, there's notifications, the sports score. There's some notifications from the babysitter. Oh, my mom texted. Oh, whatever. There's so many different notifications that are coming up. And you spend all this time and energy to get the donors in the room. You spend all this time and energy in storytelling to tug at those heartstrings. And then all of a sudden, now what you did by telling people to open their phones, they just leave the room. And all of that energy and time and dollars that you invested into that golden goosebump moment just disappear. So that's why we still love paddles. So now there is an actual neurochemical reason why we like paddles. So it's what they call a neurochemical surge. So when we ask someone to raise their paddle and they raise their paddle above their head, what happens is there is a release of dopamine, there's a release of endorphins, there's a release of adrenaline, serotonin that's going to go out, and all of these neurochemicals that happen in the brain make people feel good. So that's why it's so important to have people to raise their paddles and get those paddles up in the air. And there's a lot of different engagement opportunities that we have at fundraising events to get those paddles up in the air, get those hands over their head. That's why we use paddles. If you are listening to this, you will have to see me extravagantly waving my paddle, excited all over the place. And that's what we love to do, is we like to get that excitement, we like to get that energy, and we like to get those paddles out there in the air. More paddles up equals more paddles up. Now, what else also happens is this gives you an identifier to each one of your guests that is in the audience. And when they make a gift, we identify them individually. Now, I wish I could know every name of every audience member, but I just can't. But I can read their paddles out. So now, paddle best practice. This is the favorite paddle that I have. You're not listening, you can't see it, but what it is a 3.5 by 8.5 inch paddle made on cardstock with big, bold lettering, plain lettering in, gosh, I think this is like 82 point font or something like that, as big as you can get on this card. And the reason that it is because this card can be seen from way across a ballroom. And that's so important because there's someone might be in the back that's raising their paddle. We want to recognize them because every relationship in the room is so very important. And that's why it's so important to have paddles on every person's plate, in every person's hand. And even if they're couples, you give them each a paddle. They might have the same paddle number, but you give them each a paddle because sometimes what ends up happening during the live auction, during the paddle race, someone has to go for a bio break and they've had to take the paddle with them. So someone wants to raise the paddle. It's like, we need to have a paddle. So every person in that audience does get a paddle. So paddles can make a huge difference in your fundraising event, and you need to have them. They're so important. Make sure you use 3-digit numbers, make sure they're nice and bold, and then make sure they're attached to every person that's out there. And what's great is working with one of the tech platforms is that you're able to attach paddle number to credit card numbers, so you're not chasing money afterwards, which is so important. We just had a client that was like, nah, we'll just call them afterwards. Well, guess what? They lost $20,000 because they didn't pre-swipe credit cards. 20 grand's a lot, especially for an organization that raised $70,000. I mean, that's almost a third of the dollars that they raised that they did not get because they didn't get a technology and put credit cards on file. Paddles are the things that are able to make your purpose and your mission happen. Paddles with a purpose. It's so important. So I want to thank you all again for joining me for just a few minutes here on the Auction is Action with You in It podcast. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, hit the reviews, do all of those wonderful things to help us grow this wonderful podcast that is able to go out to more nonprofits out there in the world so that we can make an impact on them together. We're all in this together. We're all throwing pebbles in the pond. We are all making ripples across this world, and we're doing this together. So I want to thank you again so much. Bobby D, CEO, lead auctioneer of Call to Auction, and your host of the Call to Auction. Auction is Action with You in It podcast. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time. Don't forget, you need paddles. Paddles up. Let's raise some money. Thanks, everybody. Bye.